Have you ever stared at yourself in frustration and whispered, "Why am I so lazy?" Maybe you've sat at your desk with a deadline looming, but instead of typing a single word, you scrolled through your phone for hours. Maybe you've told yourself you'd exercise tomorrow, clean the house this weekend, start the project next month, yet tomorrow never seems to come. And every time you fail to act, you don't just feel unproductive, you feel ashamed, even worthless. But here's the truth that few people ever tell you: you are not lazy. That paralysis you label as laziness isn't proof of weakness. It is proof of survival. What you call procrastination is often a child part of you, frozen in time, still protecting you from dangers that no longer exist. Every time you delay, every time you avoid, every time you collapse into stillness, it is not defiance. It is defense. It is your nervous system remembering what your conscious mind has forgotten, that once upon a time, acting boldly was not safe. Carl Jung, the great depth psychologist, believed that inside every adult lives every age we have ever been. The 6-year-old who was humiliated for speaking too loudly. The 10-year-old who was punished for trying and failing. The teenager who learned that success only invited envy or attack. These younger selves do not simply vanish. They remain alive within us. Fragments Jung called complexes, autonomous pieces of personality, frozen in the moment of trauma, forever trying to keep us safe. So when you sit in front of a blank page and feel your energy drain away, it is not because you are lazy. It is because a child inside you still remembers that finishing something once meant betrayal. When you stay in bed long after you should have risen, it is not because you don't care. It is because a younger self inside you still believes that stopping equals worthlessness. Every procrastination is a protection. Every delay is an old alarm sounding in the present. Every so-called lazy behavior is a younger part of you, still loyal, still on guard, still protecting you the only way it knows how. Think about it. What if the moments you hated most about yourself were not moral failures, but survival codes? What if the paralysis you curse is the same strategy that once kept you alive? Suddenly the shame lifts. Suddenly you realize, you have never been lazy. You have only been loyal to the frightened child within who never stopped defending you. And that changes everything, because the cure is not discipline or willpower. It is compassion. It is learning to see your laziness as the frozen intelligence of a child who once had no choice but to freeze. And it is discovering that today, as an adult, you can give that child something they never had before: safety. Here on Dharma Veins, we explore the wisdom of Jung and the timeless insights of the Dharma to show you that you are not broken. You are not defective, and you are certainly not lazy. You are simply carrying the survival strategies of the past into the present. And once you see this, healing can begin. 1. Jung's psychological insight, refined narrative style. Carl Jung once observed that the adult psyche is never truly singular. We carry within us every age we have ever been, every stage that left a mark. Childhood doesn't disappear, it lingers, layered beneath the surface, shaping the way we move, love, and work. When trauma occurs, something remarkable and tragic happens. A part of the psyche refuses to move forward. It freezes. That 6-year-old who was shamed, that 10-year-old who was struck with fear, that teenager who was silenced, each remains alive, suspended in time. Jung called these fragments complexes, small autonomous personalities that break away from the whole and continue to act with the logic of the moment they were born. On the outside, it may look like laziness, procrastination, or self-sabotage, but within, it is that frozen child still on guard. The body of the adult shows hesitation, but the heartbeat belongs to the child who once learned that action was dangerous. History is full of examples of powerful people haunted by their younger selves. Abraham Lincoln, who carried the weight of melancholy all his life, once admitted that his melancholy dripped from him as he walked. Beneath his towering leadership, one can sense the lonely boy who lost his mother at 9 years old. Or take Princess Diana, graceful, adored, yet forever shadowed by the wound of abandonment she felt when her parents separated. What the world saw as her vulnerability was, in truth, the echo of that child's grief. Jung understood that these inner children do not merely vanish with age. They remain inside the adult, pulling at invisible strings, and until they are recognized and held with compassion, they shape our choices in ways we cannot see. What we dismiss as lack of motivation or weakness is often loyalty. Loyalty to the child who once kept us alive by staying small. By staying quiet, by staying invisible. This is Jung's genius, revealing that the so-called flaws of adulthood are often the unfinished stories of childhood. What we call laziness may be nothing more than the frozen intelligence of a frightened child, still guarding us against dangers long gone. 2. The child's survival strategies. Children are not lazy. They are brilliant survivors. When the world around them becomes unsafe, they don't debate or rationalize, they adapt instantly. Survival comes first, even if it means carrying scars into adulthood. If success once brought punishment, the child learns not to finish. Think of Richard Nixon, brilliant, ambitious, but haunted by an early life marked by constant criticism from his Quaker mother. To avoid further rejection, he often sabotaged relationships and second-guessed his own achievements. His pattern of self-undoing wasn't stupidity. It was loyalty to a child who had learned that triumph invites attack. If resting once drew shame, the child learns to never truly rest. Consider Elon Musk. He openly admits he fears idleness, driving himself to sleepless extremes. This compulsion doesn't just signal ambition. It echoes the boy who grew up in a turbulent South African household where safety was never guaranteed. Rest felt dangerous, so hyperproductivity became protection. These responses are not choices in the adult sense. They are reflexes, as automatic as pulling your hand away from a flame. To the outside world, it looks like procrastination, overwork, or self-sabotage, but to the nervous system, it is survival. This is why Jung insisted, what we condemn as laziness is often the residue of a child's genius, strategies written in fear but meant to keep us alive. Until they are recognized, these strategies keep running, long after the original danger is gone. 2. The child's survival strategies. Children are not lazy. They are brilliant survivors. When the world around them becomes unsafe, they don't debate or rationalize, they adapt instantly. Survival comes first, even if it means carrying scars into adulthood. If success once brought punishment, the child learns not to finish. Think of Richard Nixon, brilliant, ambitious, but haunted by an early life marked by constant criticism from his Quaker mother. To avoid further rejection, he often sabotaged relationships and second-guessed his own achievements. His pattern of self-undoing wasn't stupidity. It was loyalty to a child who had learned that triumph invites attack. If resting once drew shame, the child learns to never truly rest. Consider Elon Musk. He openly admits he fears idleness, driving himself to sleepless extremes. This compulsion doesn't just signal ambition. It echoes the boy who grew up in a turbulent South African household where safety was never guaranteed. Rest felt dangerous, so hyperproductivity became protection. These responses are not choices in the adult sense. They are reflexes, as automatic as pulling your hand away from a flame. To the outside world, it looks like procrastination, overwork, or self-sabotage, but to the nervous system, it is survival. This is why Jung insisted, what we condemn as laziness is often the residue of a child's genius, strategies written in fear but meant to keep us alive. Until they are recognized, these strategies keep running, long after the original danger is gone. 3. Case studies. One of Jung's most striking observations was how childhood loyalty disguises itself as adult laziness. Take the case of a brilliant woman who could never finish what she started. Every time she approached success, her energy mysteriously drained away. On the surface, she looked unmotivated, but in analysis, it became clear, as a child, her mother collapsed emotionally whenever she excelled. Finishing meant wounding the very person she loved most. So her psyche created a perfect compromise: start projects with enthusiasm but never complete them. To outsiders she appeared lazy. In truth she was still being the loyal daughter, protecting her mother from pain. Or consider the man who spent entire days in bed, labeled by everyone as lazy. No matter how long he rested, exhaustion never left him. His story traced back to childhood, where love was conditional on constant achievement. The moment he stopped performing, he felt invisible, worthless. So as an adult, he learned a tragic rhythm: collapse into bed. Not to rest, but to escape the terror of being useless. He wasn't resting, he was hiding from the belief that stopping made him unlovable. History shows us echoes of these same patterns. Franklin D. Roosevelt, before becoming president, suffered a long period of paralysis after polio. While he fought his way back physically, he often confessed that the deeper struggle was emotional, the fear that his incapacity meant failure, worthlessness, even betrayal of those who depended on him. His eventual rise wasn't just political, it was psychological, breaking free from the child's belief that weakness erased value. What looks like laziness is rarely sloth. More often, it is loyalty. Loyalty to a frightened child's survival code. Loyalty to parents who could not tolerate our success or our rest. The adult body lies still, but the child's devotion is still at work. 4. Freeze response. When the body locks down. Jung understood that what many people call laziness is not a moral defect. It is the body still obeying an ancient survival code. Psychology calls it the freeze response. When a child cannot fight and cannot flee, the nervous system makes a third choice: it shuts down. The body becomes still. The mind fogs. Energy disappears. From the outside it looks like apathy. From the inside it feels like drowning in invisible cement. Think of soldiers returning from war. Many describe the same paralysis. The phone rings and they cannot move. A task awaits and their body collapses into stillness. They are not choosing idleness. Their nervous system is still standing guard, convinced danger is near. Former U.S. Senator John McCain spoke openly about moments of mental lock after years as a prisoner of war in Vietnam. He described it not as weakness, but as his body replaying captivity long after freedom had been won. The same happens in everyday life. The executive who stares blankly at his desk before an important call isn't weak. His nervous system has mistaken a routine stressor for the battlefield of his childhood. The student who scrolls endlessly on her phone is not lazy, she is frozen. Just as she was when silence once protected her from a parent's rage. Biology proves it. In freeze mode, heart rate drops, breathing shallows, muscles stiffen. The brain literally shuts down higher reasoning. One patient of Jung described it perfectly: it's like someone pulls the plug. One moment I'm alive, the next I'm underwater, moving through thick honey. This is why scolding yourself for laziness is not only cruel, it's ineffective. You cannot shame a nervous system into thawing. The freeze response is not disobedience, it is loyalty. It is the child inside you, still keeping watch, still protecting you with the only weapon it had: silence, stillness, invisibility. 5. The paradox of rest. One of the cruelest illusions of trauma is that what looks like rest is not rest at all. Many people think lying in bed, avoiding tasks, or losing themselves in endless scrolling is the same as recovery. But Jung would say this is not restoration, it is collapse. The body is down, but the nervous system is still on high alert. You're not truly resting, you're frozen between exhaustion and fear. You can't move forward, but you can't sink into peace either. That is why hours in bed leave you just as tired. Sometimes more. It isn't leisure, it's paralysis disguised as leisure. History gives us clear examples. Winston Churchill called his depression the black dog. During those long spells of collapse, he appeared to the outside world as if he were resting. But inside, his mind was pacing, chained to fear and despair. He wasn't restored by sleep or stillness. He was trapped in a cycle where neither work nor rest brought relief. Modern leaders show the same pattern. Public figures like Elon Musk admit to working themselves to collapse because the idea of doing nothing feels unbearable. When rest itself triggers guilt or shame, the body doesn't heal, it merely shuts down. That collapse is not laziness, it's the nervous system stuck in purgatory, unable to cross the threshold into true renewal. This is the paradox: the more you collapse, the less you recover. It's not weakness. It's an unresolved survival code still whispering that rest is dangerous. Until the child inside learns that rest is safe, every attempt to relax will feel like failure, and every pause will turn into another spiral of exhaustion. 6. Jung's path to healing. Jung warned that forcing yourself to do more only deepens the paralysis. Discipline may silence the symptom for a day, but it does not touch the wound. The frozen child inside is not lazy, they are terrified. And terror cannot be bullied into productivity, it has to be met with safety. That is why Jung spoke of living through. Healing begins when you allow yourself to re-experience the emotions that were once unbearable, but this time with adult awareness present. The shame, The rage, the fear can finally be felt. Not as a helpless child, but as a conscious adult who can contain it. He used active imagination to guide this process. Instead of analyzing the child from a distance, he encouraged patients to step into that child's body, to speak with its voice, to feel its trembling. But unlike the original trauma, the adult self is there now, able to say, "You are safe. I'm here. You can cry, rage, or fail, and I will not leave." Jung practiced this himself. During his confrontation with the unconscious, he literally played, arranging stones, building castles of sand, drawing like a boy. These were not trivial games, they were bridges to the inner child. Invitations for frozen parts of his psyche to thaw in the warmth of attention. Think of it this way: Franklin Roosevelt's triumph over polio was not only physical therapy, it was also the slow work of integrating despair, grief, and humiliation into a new sense of self. His playfulness with stamps and naval miniatures, often dismissed as hobbies, were in fact his own versions of Jung's sandcastles, creative rituals that kept his inner child alive and safe while his body struggled. Jung's insight is timeless. The child inside us does not heal through force, but through presence, by reliving the frozen feelings with adult consciousness, by embodying the child with compassion, and even by allowing ourselves to play again. We gradually teach the nervous system what it never knew: that the danger has passed, and it is finally safe to live. 7. Permission slips for the inner child. At the heart of Jung's work lies a simple but radical idea. The child inside you is still waiting for permission. Permission to rest without guilt. Permission to fail without punishment. Permission to be imperfect and still be loved. Permission to simply exist without earning your right to be here. As children, many of us never received that permission. We were praised only when we performed, valued only when we succeeded, noticed only when we behaved. Rest was criticized, mistakes were punished. Being ordinary meant being invisible. So the child froze, holding out hope that one day someone stronger, kinder, wiser would finally grant them the freedom they longed for. But here is the truth Jung uncovered: you're that person now. The adult you have become is the only one who can write that permission slip. No parent, no teacher, no authority outside of you can do it anymore. Some of Jung's patients literally wrote these slips to their younger selves. I give you permission to rest. I give you permission to try and fail. You are safe even when you make mistakes. You are loved even when you produce nothing. Simple words, but to the child still waiting in the dark, they landed like water in the desert. Think of Nelson Mandela, who after 27 years in prison emerged not with bitterness but with a new authority over his own soul. In a sense, he had granted himself the ultimate permission slip, the permission to live fully, even after decades of enforced stillness. This is the essence of individuation, becoming your own authority, your own parent, your own healer. Writing those inner permission slips is not childish, it is the most adult act you can perform. Because once the child inside believes you, once it knows rest and failure and imperfection are safe, the old strategies dissolve. What once looked like laziness becomes freedom, energy, and life. So let this truth settle in your heart: you were never lazy. What you have carried all these years is not weakness, it is the frozen courage of a child who once had no other choice. That paralysis, that hesitation, that endless self-criticism was never a flaw in your character. It was a survival strategy. But survival is not the same as living. The danger has passed, yet the child inside doesn't know it. And that means your work now is no longer to fight yourself, but to heal yourself, to stop waging war against your own nervous system and begin offering it the one thing it has never known: safety. Carl Jung once wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And that is the invitation here, to accept even the part of you that looks like laziness. To embrace it, not as an enemy to be punished, but as a child to be loved. Because when you finally stop shaming the frozen parts of yourself, you make space for them to thaw. And what melts is not laziness, it is life returning. Here on Dharma Veins, we walk this journey together, through psychology, through the Dharma, through the deep wisdom of those who faced their shadows and found freedom. If these words resonate with you, I invite you to subscribe, to share this video with someone who calls themselves lazy, and to join this community of seekers and healers. And now, I want to ask you, when was the moment you realized your so-called laziness was really something deeper: fear? Self-protection, or the voice of your inner child? Share your story in the comments. Because every story you tell is not just for you, it's a light for someone else still lost in the dark.